My name's James Brazier. It's been 4 hours since my last innovation. I'm an innovation anonymous participant. My innovation this morning was that I had to shave my head. I don't have the luxury of lots of hair. And it's amazing what you can find in a hotel to do the back of your hair. Was a tissue box which had mirrors on it. So you can use that to make sure you get it. Now, I'll let you judge the quality. I may have missed a couple of spots, but hey. So what I'll talk to you about today is innovation at CCA and in the Coke world. And the good thing about working for a company like Coke is when you have a barbecue, you say, oh, I work for Coke, and they're all very, very, wow, well, that's great. What do you do? I work in innovation. I do their new products. Really? Coke? They're not really that innovative. What does Coke do? A new red on their can. Woohoo! So we do a lot. And I suppose what I'll take you through today is what we see as innovation. In Helen's example, she felt like she was a lone voice sometimes in a company. I feel like I'm surrounded by people who are trying to innovate, and it's about controlling that innovation. So it's interesting. It's actually the way people innovate that is challenging to control within our company. Why? So in 1886, the Coca-Cola company was founded, and really it's been innovating ever since it started. So, you know, whether that be about brand integrity, so simple thing, when I first started with the company 20 years ago, I was handed a brochure, a booklet, and it was all about trademark protection. It was about how to write the word Coca-Cola. It was how to make sure that when we went out into the trade, that brand was presented well and that other people weren't ripping us off. It was about, in all of the different forms, it was about, in those early days, creating integrity around the ingredients, and this was all innovation at that particular point in time. It wasn't called innovation, it was about protecting your assets. But those steps in those early formation years really resulted in the brand that we have now. With packaging, I mean, we started off with two-piece PET bottles. I think some of you might remember. Some of you look too young to remember, but with the two-piece with a black base on a PET bottle. Through different cans, different designs on our aluminium bottle cans, Jean-Paul Gaultier, as well as all the different formats of glass into every type of packaging you can consider. Obviously on brand Coca-Cola, but on all of the products that we do. One of the nice things about our company is it's quite large, but it also was one of the more confronting things for me was when I found out that Santa Claus in his current form was designed by Coca-Cola. It was commissioned by Coca-Cola. So the red fat Santa that we all know and love was designed by Coca-Cola. And Australia is quite innovative as well. So the names on the cans that you saw there, we call it Connect, was our project name, was actually created in Australia and has now gone global. And if you go to other countries around the world, you'll see this marketing activity come through. But there's many other examples, whether it be polar bears or Velcro posters that attract people. That we're very creative in our advertising. From distribution, it's a little-known fact that Coca-Cola Amatil has the second largest distribution in the country. It's only second to Australia Post. But one of the things that the Coke system brought was a focus for our bottlers to get to that stage was about being an anchor bottler. So divesting themselves of other business attributes so that we could focus on selling Big Red. So that was the important thing. From an equipment perspective, from the very traditional pieces of equipment all the way through to different vendors at countertops, through post-mix equipment, which was very functional, shall we say, but not so beautiful, through to right now where we have freestyle, where you can actually just choose the flavours you want to mix and it all comes out into one cup. So we've got quite a strong history in equipment innovation. And obviously in manufacturing. So, I mean, just some simple numbers. We have 6 can lines just on the east coast of Australia that run pretty much close to 5 days, 24 hours, producing anywhere between 1,200 and 2,000 cans per minute just to keep up with Australian demand. So you have to then have all of the support to support that volume requirements and innovation to keep up with the production demands. So from a product perspective, which is when you talk to people about new products and innovation, most people go straight to this point. We've had some great successes. So Coke Zero was actually, again, one of the biggest projects that we launched in Australia. It was originally forecast to sell about 8 million cases in its first year. We sold 28 million. We were so successful that our formula was the one that was chosen to go around the world. And it's a little known fact that Coke Zero and Diet Coke, there are different forms of that formula around the world, unlike Coke where there is only one. Well, we tried to do New Coke, but that was probably one of our more public, less successful ventures. But I think that we all learned from that. I am one of the co-creators of the brand Mother, which is one of our energy drinks here in Australia. In fact, I was the manager of the team that created the first version, which was resoundingly rejected by everyone and resulted in $9 million worth of write-off. So I have personal experience with failure, and I'm now still leading the team, so that's a good sign. Maybe that they're not a very good judge of character, I don't know, one of the two. But we had to be asked if it was okay if they had that ad where they threw the scientist out the window. I was one of the scientists. So, but I also say I don't launch things. We present things to marketers and to the business to make decisions on what to launch. And so it really was a business decision as to what we did, and we also presented the solution, which is now a very successful brand. So that's just Coca-Cola. And if you like, there's 2 parts to us. There's the Coca-Cola company, and that was largely focused on what Coca-Cola is. But really we're saying the innovation word is a word that's now, but it's really been part of our system for the last 120 odd years. And so we consider it part of our DNA. So what about at Amatil, which is the bottler side of the company? So really, one business model is not successful all the time, I think is a good catchphrase for Amatil. So we started out as a conglomerate. We used to sell tobacco and chips and all sorts of different elements, and then we divested, as I mentioned, into an anchor bottler. We then expanded back into snack foods with SPCA. We've had some challenges around that investment, some quite public challenges, but we thank you, please buy Australian. We've now expanded into we have the largest water brands, tea, coffee. So we're very strong into this expansion area. We do our own cold drink equipment, and we also have now our alcoholic beverages as well. So we're not just brand Coke, so this is an important point. It's obviously a large proportion of our volume. So we have a large portfolio of products and what we sell, and this has changed and evolved, and I could equally put up a list this large of products that we own, brands that we do own that are no longer active as well, because you make choices about which brands you keep. So how and when and where do we make things, and what decisions? You know, when I started 20 years ago, there was multiple bottlers all around the country. We had a nationalising customer base, and so what we ended up, and very low fuel prices, and we ended up with centralised production, where we would make only certain products in certain states, and we would optimise our freight. And yet, things changed. Fuel prices went up, and so we then rebuilt our state-based manufacturing capability. So we make nearly all of our products nearly everywhere. Again, resin costs went up. We went and put blow moulding capability in our plants so that we could supply our own packaging to ourselves. And we did that not attached to particular production lines, but just in a central location. The resin costs went down. We divested. We sold that off to Visi. But now, look, the cost of conversion in every cent and the resin cost is critical again. So now we've just spent $350 million investing back into this technology. We now are one of the only bottlers in the world that makes our own caps, our own bottles, the preforms, and we actually have blow molders attached to our lines so that cost of inventory has gone down. So we've really focused on that conversion cost. So I think the key thing for us is just because we did it in the past doesn't mean we have to do it in the future, and we may change our minds several times depending on the market situation. So what does CCA look like now? So we have around 15 to 16,000 employees. We do about 3.2 billion litres worth of beverages, about 1,300 Olympic pools. 85% of our business comes from beverages. So we're still a beverage business. 15% from food service, and we like to think that we're refreshing people, 275 million people across our operating areas. We have 38 production lines, 15 production plants, and 1,100 SKUs. And 85, as I mentioned, 85% of them are made in each state, so that we're largely self-sufficient, particularly for those in Western Australia. We do go there quite often. And they're very self-sufficient. In fact, so self-sufficient we very rarely talk about them. So,
we like it that way.
Yeah, interestingly, they all say the same as well, so that's good. They feel very happy as well. But that's sort of our history. That's how we've arrived at now. And now I suppose we're here to talk about innovation. So how do we do this? And I refer to it as innovation by 1,000 cuts kind of a process. We don't have just one layer of innovation. We have multiple layers. So this is a slide Paul put together, and I think it's a great, who heads the first team that I'll talk about, which is the BIG. It's a Breakthrough Innovation Group. And this is really looking at solving problems in our business. That we always talk about the same problems, it seems, but we don't come up with we don't really solve the problems. We come up with little nicks around the edge of the problem and solve pieces of it. And so it's taking a much broader, long-term position as to how we will resolve these bigger problems for our business, driving immediate consumption, whatever the problem is, it's more at a strategic level. I lead up the FutureWorks layer of the business, which is essentially looking at supply chain capability across our business. And then there's several layers that operate in different areas. I'll categorise them a bit later. So NPD is a standard stage and gate process that we've had. We've had that in place for at least 10, 12 years now, and that works well. And we have people that are just dedicated to managing and killing and launching projects. That's what their whole accountability is. Blueprint looks after the equipment innovation side. We have a supply chain gate process which allows us to manage non-NPD related projects. But these are all really about execution of changes to our portfolio in the marketplace. We then have some other projects like programs like Innovate, and Yvonne is here today who heads up Innovate. She's just joined back in after 5 weeks. So this program is what we would call a ground-up innovation program, and it is not a suggestion box, but it is a way for our staff to engage with the company and provide innovation across our business. I'll give you some statistics on just sort of the types of innovations. So whereas these ideas are more top-down, this is certainly more ground-up, and these types of innovations at an Innovate level would be things like a zip tag on a forklift truck to give an idea of how high we can stack pallets in the warehouse. It could be about putting hand grips on a trolley. These are people coming up with ideas every day about how to do their job better and easier, and then we have a recognition program to support that. And then the last two are really around innovation programs that are connecting ourselves with our suppliers and with our customers. So Supplier of the Year programs, as well as our on-premise for alcohol innovation as well. So really what we're talking about is we've got some strategic, longer-term areas. We've got certainly some business plan and executional areas. We've got some customer and supplier-driven innovation. And then we really have our Innovate program acting as our engagement for our staff. And it would be nice to say that this was how we thought it out. It's not. It ended up this way. What we've tried not to do is create one process that can manage all of this, because it just doesn't seem to work that way. And what's great is when you try to change one of these, you get one of these processes, you get a lot of pushback from people. So if we tried to change the way Innovate operated, we got so much pushback, because it's as much about the innovation as it is about the engagement. So how do we measure it? We talk about in total numbers. Big might be 4 to 6 sort of projects that you might work on. FutureWorks does 10 to 20. They're kind of long term. So the $350 million investment in blow-fill technology was one of those projects. NPD does around 120 to 150. And then Innovate's over 2,000. So that kind of gives you an idea of the scale of the numbers. We've had over 8,000 ideas put through Innovate since its inception 6.5 years ago, working with Hargraves and with Derek, who led the implementation of it. But I don't want to paint all rosy. Of those 8,000 ideas, one of our opportunities now is there's still quite a large number, in the order of thousands, that are still stuck in certain phases of that process that we need to work out how to make that system work. So there's a lot of opportunities still to improve. We then obviously have the normal efficiency and effectiveness, so projects passing gates, time taken to proceed through those projects, and then obviously net sales revenue, because we're a public listed company, and that would be unheard of if we didn't have that. So what's my role? So I head up the FutureWorks team. As I was mentioning, we're really the internal R&D team within the bottler system. In most companies, they have R&D teams. It's unusual in a bottling system to have an R&D team. But we're really set about to try and deliver new to Australia, new to CCA or to the Coke system, and new to the world in innovations. Provide new manufacturing capability, whether it be a different type of process so that there's a capability gain or a consumer benefit or a customer benefit, or to deliver a cost optimization. We have to fund our own costs, so every year we deliver over between $3 and $5 million worth of cost savings to help fund our own existence. But we're a very small team, so there's a vacancy right now, but we only have a team of 4 or 5. We work in a virtual network, so basically our operational business is our team as well. So we rely on our teams in the business to help drive these changes. We have a traditional stage and gate, but we've gone through various iterations of how we work, and what we found was when we tried to run our own process by ourselves, we fell over ourselves. And the reason I'm being quite open about it is because if you have that process where you're trying to create something and then implement it within the business, in a business as large as ours, there's so many different data requirements to get something to go live that you just don't have the resources to implement that. So what we've actually gone to is we do the creation piece, and then we feed into our standard NPD so that the people that know what information needs to get where gets into the right locations. And some successes that we've had, they might appear basic to people external, but in a lot of cases, these are not basic. So Powerade bottle, which has just hit the market, is the lightest weight bottle using the manufacturing technology that we've got in the world. And this sort of a design normally requires an aseptic production line to produce. We're not using that technology, and we've saved several $1 million worth of capital investment in order to do that, and yet still have a package which is easy to use, functional, and gives us some plastic savings. We're the first in the bottling world to produce our own closures, and we lovingly call it the squashed moth. It's actually a butterfly on the top embossed into the Mount Franklin closure. And we've just recently bought a new production line which will produce Tetra Prisma packs, which is the first in the CCA system to do that. We have many other examples. If many of you go to a pub or a club, you'll see Canadian Club and Draft. We put that into kegs, so when we were actually divested out of beer, we've only just gone back into beer, but so that we didn't lose some of that volume, we put Canadian Club and Dry into a keg so that it would replace the beer taps that we lost with a draft version of a ready-to-drink alcohol. So those sorts of innovations were managed through our team. So really, I was trying to get the time back. So I really just wanted to finish up and say thank you for the opportunity to come along. I felt like I've learnt from the previous presenters, but I hope there was also something that I could pass on from Amatil's experience. We're working on some of those innovations as we speak, so there's other ones that we've seen where a label turns into a bow, for example, and we're looking at those types of innovations. We test more of what we see because it's such a global organisation. Even finding out about what everyone else in the world is doing is a challenge. But what we do is before we actually just implement it, we make sure we do the justification research. So what made Coke Zero so successful in Australia, as an example, was that for the previous 10 years, we were getting formulas presented to us from Atlanta, from the Corp, to say, oh, is this, you should do this, improve your formulas. And our brand team was so strong in protecting what Diet Coke was, that we wanted to make sure we had enough differentiation so that we're not going to change Diet Coke because female drinkers love Diet Coke, and some male drinkers, sorry, don't want to disenfranchise anyone. That then we waited till there was enough of a difference in place to allow us to launch Coke Zero, and that was one of the prime reasons why Coke Zero was successful. So we don't just take whatever anyone offers us and launch it. We make sure we push back. Other examples might be Minute Maid was a brand that they all wanted to launch here in Australia because it was one of the biggest brands in the Coke system in North America. And we've pushed back and made sure that brand, well, it doesn't really work and cut through with Australian consumers. So there's a lot of understanding what's available and trying to cherry pick out the best ideas that are relevant.
Thank you, James.